Aside from the pandemic, no story has gotten more attention in the last year than police reform.
Madison had some very rough moments last year. Some were wondering if the city was leaving behind methods of policing it became known for nearly a half-century ago.
Power to the people!
It was a year of great unrest. And sandwiched between Minneapolis in May and Kenosha in August.
Heavy police presence.
Madison saw its own share of conflict. Now, the city known for its progressive policing finds itself at a crossroads in the wake of the historic conviction of Derek Chauvin for the death of George Floyd.
My first thought really was the jury did the right thing, but it doesn't bring George Floyd back to his family.
So it tells me that there are still two justice systems in this country, one in which minorities are hoping for justice and one in which people are expecting justice.
Just a few months on the job now, new Madison Police Chief Sean Barnes spent 2 decades on the force in Greensboro, North Carolina, the site of the historic lunch counter sit-ins of the 1960s. He's no stranger to the fight for civil rights.
The Madison method that we use here is probably the same as we had in Greensboro. We just didn't call it that.
The Madison method is rooted in longtime Madison Chief David Cooper's groundbreaking police approach to protesters back in the 1970s.
I always think it's great when our community wants to come out and express to their elected leadership or whoever it may be what are the things that they think is important to them. And they do that because they don't believe that we're listening.
And while many remember Madison's initial response to destructive State Street riots last year, it was an approach that evolved in the weeks that would follow.
And what I saw is even over the course of the summer that we learned a lot in how we were responding to things, in how we were trying to reach out and build relationships with the people who were planning protests, and trying to listen.
That dialogue, along with responding to what citizens have asked for and the evolution of Madison's long-held policing values, is how the mayor and the chief plan to move forward.
You know, it's not precisely the Madison model because it's not precisely dealing with protest, but it's based in the same ethos, right? That we are listening to the community, that we respect what people are saying, and that we want to allow people to exercise their rights, live their lives.
So even though it was started by Chief Cooper, fully implemented, and we still use it today, it's still good. And it's just based on the premise that we understand people, we want to respect them, we want to respect their ability to protest.
Now, with the landmark Chauvin verdict as a turning point, a new era of police accountability, a new era, they hope, of building trust.
What is the calculation? What is the opportunity cost for changing the way we do things? And after we do that, we all have to agree with it. It has to be our consensus, and we have to hold each other accountable.
I think that we have for too long taken the approach of, well, the rising tide will lift all boats, and if we do things that are good, they will be good for everybody. And that's not enough. We have to be more targeted, right? We have to not take an equality approach, but rather an equity approach.
Now, we discussed many issues, including body cameras. The chief wants them. The mayor describes herself now as agnostic on that idea. The chief also talked about the recent police shooting of Andrew Brown Jr. in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. That's a city where he attended college.
To hear a longer version of this conversation, watch this week's edition of For the Record at channel3000.com.